And in that instant, before anyone spoke, I realized someone at that table wasn't supposed to be afraid. But they were. Grandpa raised his glass toward me, his hand trembling just slightly, though his voice was steady. "Claire," he said, eyes locked on mine. "Have you received the trust fund I set up for you? The 3 million. The clink of silverware stopped mid-air. Every conversation died instantly, like someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the dining room. I blinked at him, confused, thinking I must have misheard. What trust fund? I gave a small, confused laugh. I never got one. Silence. A thick, heavy, suffocating silence. My mother's smile froze, sharp enough to cut glass. Dad's jaw tightened, like he was calculating something behind his eyes. My sister Lily, perfect, polished Lily, went completely still, the way a deer does when it hears a twig snap. My brother-in-law shifted in his seat, pretending to check his phone, but his fingers shook. Grandpa didn't flinch. He just glanced at the man standing quietly near the wall. His longtime lawyer, Mr. Alden. Alden stepped forward, clearing his throat. "I brought the original documents, as requested." He set a thick folder on the table. Everyone stared at it like it was a bomb. And maybe it was. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. My palms were sweating. Something was wrong, very wrong. Someone wasn't shocked. Someone was terrified. I didn't know who yet, but I felt it like static in the air as the tension built around me. My mind flashed to my real life outside this suffocating dining room. My tiny Seattle apartment, the freelancing jobs that barely paid rent, the nights Jade, my roommate, and I ate instant noodles while laughing about being accidentally broke. My family knew all this. They watched me struggle. And they said nothing. Meanwhile, Lily never struggled a day in her life. Private university paid in full, a luxury car on her 21st birthday, a wedding fully funded without hesitation. But me? Grandpa looked heartbroken as he studied my face. "I made you a promise when you were little," he whispered. "I told you I'd make sure you were safe." Why would I need to be safe? The answer wasn't in the documents. It was sitting somewhere at that table. Hiding something. To understand how we got here, you need to know what my life looked like before that dinner. Every time I had worked 2 jobs, every time I'd begged for help, it hadn't been fate. It had been theft. Seattle wasn't glamorous. Not the part one lived in. My apartment with Jade was small. Walls too thin, heating unreliable in the winter, but it was the only place I ever felt wanted. Jade would sit on the kitchen counter, legs swinging, reminding me, "You're doing great, Claire. You don't need them." She meant well. She didn't know how deep the roots went across the lake. My parents' Bellevue house looked like something out of one of those glossy real estate magazines. White stone, glass railings, a manicured lawn no one ever walked on. A house big enough for everyone but welcoming to no one. Especially me. The inequality had always been there. And the memories came back, one by one. I remembered the day my car broke down on I-5. I'd called my mom, panicked, crying, because the tow truck alone was more than my bank account held. Her voice had been bored. "Claire, we can't always come rescue you. You need to learn responsibility." She hung up. Meanwhile, 2 months later, Lily got a brand new SUV because her old one didn't feel smooth anymore. There was the college textbook fiasco. I had 3 part-time jobs and still came up short. When I asked for help, just enough to pass my classes, my dad sighed so deeply it felt like he was pushing me away through the phone. "We can't keep bailing you out." They hadn't bailed me out once. That same year, they fully funded Lily's summer in Europe. Flights, hotels, spending money. Mom bragged for weeks. "It's important for Lily to see the world." When I signed my first lease with barely their credit and zero safety net, Mom smiled like she was congratulating herself, not me. "This will be character building for you, Claire. You've always been so independent." Her voice carried that familiar passive-aggressive sweetness, the kind that bruised without leaving marks. Dad never corrected her. His silence had been its own form of permission. The pattern was always the same. When Lily wanted something, "Of course, sweetheart." When I needed something, "Claire, you're asking for too much." The only constant warmth in my childhood had been Grandpa. He was the one who came to my school plays, the one who slipped me $20 for ice cream, the one who told me, "You deserve good things, kiddo." Back then I didn't realize he was trying to shield me. And now, sitting at that dinner table, I finally understood. He had tried to protect me from my own family. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, drop a broken heart in the comments. But that birthday dinner was different. Something had been shifting for months. Silence crushed the room. Lily's smile fell apart. My father's jaw clenched. My mother stared at me like I'd spoken another language. The birthday dinner looked perfect. Too perfect. A long table dressed in cream linens, polished silverware, crystal glasses, candles arranged with military precision. My mother loved displays like this. Not for celebration but for control. The kind of beauty that hid ugliness underneath. She smiled at me with that familiar tightness. "We're all so proud of how resourceful you've been, Claire." Resourceful. Her favorite word when she meant struggling. Before I could respond, Lily jumped in, flipping her hair. "Oh, guess what? Daniel surprised me with a weekend getaway to Napa." Well, technically Mom and Dad paid for most of it, but still, so romantic. She giggled, glancing at me in that effortless way that said, "See how easy life is for me." Dad lifted his wine glass, nodding. "She deserves it after working so hard." I stared at him. Lily didn't even have a job. But nobody corrected him. Nobody ever did. Grandpa watched all of this quietly, hands folded. His eyes moving from one face to another like he was collecting proof. He waited. He always waited for the right moment. And then, he struck. He turned to me. "Claire, did you receive the trust fund I set up for you? The $3 million. Everything inside me stopped. Lily let out a confused giggle. Too high, too quick. Mom's smile stretched wider, but panic flickered behind her eyes. Dad froze, glass halfway to his mouth, the crystal tapping against his ringed stomach dropped. A cold, hollow feeling washed through me. "I never got one," I said. Silence. Heavy. Accusing. Electric. Mom leaned forward, laughing lightly. "Oh, Dad." Claire misunderstood. "You know how she is. Emotional." She probably forgot. Grandpa slammed his hand on the table, not hard but enough to make every fork rattle. No. She did not misunderstand. He turned to all of them. "Meet me tomorrow morning. My office. 10 a.m. Nobody dared speak. Nobody dared breathe. That was the moment the dinner cracked open. I walked out before anyone could stop me. But the next morning everything would change. Every time I had begged for help. Every time I'd swallowed the feeling of being forgotten. It hadn't been fate. It had been theft. The next morning, Seattle was wrapped in fog thick enough to feel like a warning. I took the early bus, sitting by the window as condensation blurred the world outside. My reflection stared back, tired, furious, terrified. My fingers wouldn't stop trembling. Grandpa's office was on the top floor of an old brick building downtown. When I stepped inside, the familiar scent of cedar and old books wrapped around me like a blanket. Warm, steady, grounding. But today, the warmth was edged with something sharper. Grandpa stood when I entered. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were clear, determined. Beside him, Mr. Alden, the lawyer, was already setting a thick stack of folders on the conference table. "Sit, Claire," Grandpa said softly. "You deserve the truth." The first folder opened with a soft click. Inside was the beginning of a 25-year paper trail. "Your trust was established when you were 3, Mr. Alden explained. It was designed to become fully accessible on your 18th birthday. My 18th birthday. I remembered it vividly. Not because anything special happened, but because I spent it working the closing shift at a grocery store, eating a discounted cupcake on my break. I stared at the documents. Name. My birthday. My future. Stolen page after page. The truth unfolded. Withdrawal logs. Handwritten approvals. Electronic transfers. "At 18, Mr. Alden said, pointing to a line, Your parents withdrew $42,000 to cover a mortgage payment. Then another line. $78,000. Home upgrades. Kitchen remodel. $120,000. Lily Monroe. Tuition payment. My throat tightened. Tuition that I never received. Textbooks I had to choose between buying and paying rent. The next lines punched harder. Lily's apartment lease, paid in full. Vacation to Italy. Audi SUV. Another vacation. Designer wedding costs. I felt myself shrinking and expanding at the same time. Humiliation and rage merging into something molten. Every moment I'd been told no was right there in front of me, marked with dates and signatures, my mother's signature. Elaine Monroe. Over and over. My father's too. Daniel Monroe. Each signature was a betrayal. Each withdrawal, my voice cracked when I finally spoke. So every time I asked for help, every time they said they couldn't, I swallowed hard. It wasn't because they didn't have it. It was because they'd stolen it. Grandpa's jaw tightened. His voice shook. I'm so sorry, Claire. I trusted them. I thought they'd protect you. I closed the folder slowly, like sealing a wound I wasn't done bleeding from. Then I lifted my chin. I want everything, I said. Every record, every receipt, every dollar. Grandpa nodded once, firmly. I've already hired a full legal team. And we're arranging a confrontation meeting. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. Or forgotten that I felt like fire. I'm not the quiet daughter anymore, I said, standing. I'm the one walking toward the fire. Have you ever discovered a family betrayal that changed everything? Share your story below. You're not alone. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday. And this time they wouldn't have anywhere to hide. With every word, something inside me unfurled. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was clarity. Jade insisted on coming with me that morning. She squeezed my shoulders before I stepped out of her car. You're not walking in there as the girl they ignored, she said. You're walking in as the woman they're finally afraid of. Her words sat in my chest like armor. I caught my reflection in the glass doors of the law office. Eyes steady, jaw set, shoulders squared. For the first time I recognized myself. Inside, the conference room had been prepared like a battlefield. A long table, neutral walls, a camera discreetly installed in the corner. Everything documented. Collins, the senior lawyer Grandpa hired, waited at the head of the table with a stack of categorized binders so thick they looked like encyclopedias. Each one held pieces of my life stolen and repurposed. My parents arrived 5 minutes late, and my mother entered first, wrapped in her usual mask of iced-over composure. Her smile was brittle, her perfume too strong. Her eyes scanning for control, and my father followed, avoiding my gaze, his steps unsure. Lily trailed behind them, frowning, confused, clutching her designer bag like she expected someone to take it. Mother opened her mouth. I don't know what this is about, but we really don't have time for. Sit, Grandpa said, point one word. Sharp enough to slice the room in half. They Saturday. Collins placed the stack of documents on the table with a heavy, deliberate thud. The sound echoed, then he opened the first binder. Per request, Collins began. This is a comprehensive audit of the Monroe Family Trust established for the beneficiary Clare Monroe at age 3. He flipped to the first page. From ages 18 to 25, the beneficiary's trust was accessed, without authorization, by Elaine and Daniel Monroe. Mother's smile tightened. This is being taken out of context. Collins didn't even blink. The context, he said calmly, is financial abuse of a beneficiary. He read line after line. 2009, $42,000 withdrawal. Mortgage payment. 2010, $78,000. Home upgrades. 2011, $120,000. Tuition payments. Not for Claire. Lily's head snapped up. Wait, my tuition. Collins continued. 2013, $95,000. Apartment lease. For Lily Monroe. 2014, $63,000. Vacation expenses. 2015, $56,000. Vehicle purchase. My mother's face cracked. It was for the family, my father muttered. We used the money for the family. I leaned forward, voice slow and steady. When my car broke down on the interstate, and you told me to figure it out. Was that your idea of family? Dad swallowed. Hard. We always intended to put the money back. My mother lied smoothly, reflexively, like she'd rehearsed it. When? Yes. My voice finally sounded like it belonged to me. When I turned 40, 50, or never. Mother looked away. Grandpa spoke then, his voice heavy with decades of disappointment. You stole from a child. Lily stared at the table, realization drowning her expression. My apartment, my degree, was all of that supposed to be yours? I didn't look at her. I didn't have the bandwidth. Mother straightened her posture, clinging to her final weapon. Justification. You've always been so independent, Claire. You never asked. I let out a breath that shook the table's stillness. I didn't ask, I said, because you told me I couldn't. Because every time I tried, you made me feel like I was a burden. Silence fell again, this time shattered, not heavy. This time theirs. But I wasn't done yet. It was time to take back what was mine. I wasn't signing a document. I was signing a truth. The room was still vibrating with tension when Grandpa pushed back his chair and stood. His voice carried none of the warmth he usually reserved for family. As of this moment, he said, looking directly at my parents, your financial authority over Claire's trust is revoked. My mother's composure finally shattered. You can't do that, she hissed, fingers gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles whitened. Grandpa didn't blink. I can, he said. And I have. Collins slid a new stack of documents across the table toward me. The crisp shuffle of paper sounded impossibly loud. This, he explained, transfers full control of all remaining trust assets to you, Claire. Effective immediately. Your parents' access is permanently terminated. My father sagged in his chair, like someone had cut the strings holding him up. Lily covered her mouth with both hands, finally understanding the depth of what her parents had done, and what they were losing. My mother looked like she was swallowing fire. Her voice cracked. Claire, if you sign that, it will ruin us. Picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake this time. Then maybe, I said slowly. You shouldn't have built your life on money that wasn't yours. The words hit harder than I expected. Mother went pale. Father's eyes filled, not with regret but fear. Lily looked between us, helpless. I signed point one stroke. Then another. My name taking up space, rightful space. On paper that had once been used to erase me. It was more than a signature. It was reclamation. It was truth. Damn why parents stared at the table as if the world had slipped out from under them. They looked small, fragile, trembling. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the quiet daughter sitting in the corner. I felt like the one pulling down the walls they had built. If this story gave you chills, hit that follow button. You won't believe what happens next. When they finally left, something had fundamentally changed. Top of form. For the first time, the silence around me didn't feel like something stolen. It felt like something I owned. When the conference room finally emptied, the quiet felt enormous. Chairs pushed back. Papers stacked. Only the echo of everything that had been said remained. As I gathered my things, Lily lingered near the doorway. Her voice was barely a breath. I didn't know. I didn't forgive her, not then. But it was the first true thing she'd ever said to me. And that counted as a beginning. The next few weeks unfolded in a blur of legal finalizations. Collins worked swiftly. Transfers completed, accounts locked. My parents facing civil consequences with no shield left to hide behind. They tried calling once. I let it ring. And then, slowly, a new life took shape. My new condo in Seattle wasn't extravagant, but when I turned the key, the click felt like a promise. Mine in a way no space had ever been. Grandpa visited 2 days later, walking slowly through each room, tapping the walls like he was blessing them. "You deserved this all along," he said, resting his hand on my shoulder. His pride was gentle, not performative. The kind of pride that didn't need witnesses. That night, I cried on the living room floor. Half grief for what I'd lost, half relief for what I'd finally reclaimed. The tears weren't weakness. They were release. Winter settled over Seattle, sharp and clean. I spent mornings at the park by the water, the sky a washed-out gray, the air cold enough to clear the ache in my chest. I wasn't healed, but I wasn't drowning anymore. For the first time, distance didn't feel like abandonment. Felt like self-respect. Silence became mine, something I chose, not something forced on me. A quiet that softened instead of suffocated. One afternoon, Grandpa joined me at the park bench. He watched the icy waves for a long minute before speaking. "Safety," he said, "isn't about protection. It's about knowing who stands beside you when the truth comes out." I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had tried to warn me, tried to defend me, tried to make me safe. And I finally understood. Family wasn't blood. Family was honesty, accountability. People who showed up when it mattered. I didn't hate my parents. I simply chose myself over their chaos. And for the first time, that choice felt like peace, and it was a peace I refused to surrender. If you've ever had to step away from people who should have cared for you, I want you to know you're not alone. Your story matters. Your boundaries matter. Share your experience in the comments below. If this story stayed with you, follow the channel so you won't miss the next one. Drop a fire if you're proud of Claire for choosing herself. Tag someone who needs to hear this message. Top of form. Bottom of form. Bottom of form. Top of form. Bottom of form.